Alrighty. Unit 1, Day 2, Exponents and Powers. So our goal today is to be able to evaluate a power. And there's 3 different ways you're going to do that, okay? But I'm going to show you each one of them. So what is a power? It's an expression that looks like this. So it has like a large number, like this A represents that large number. So like a large number, and then there's this little bitty number up in the right-hand corner. This is considered a power. It's made of 2 things, a base and an exponent. Your base is going to be that large number. That would be A up here. So this is the base. The exponent is the little bitty number up in the right-hand corner. So that would be N in this example here. Now, there's a way that you can read and write these powers. So let's discuss that. So reading and writing the powers. So this right here, we have a 4 as our base and a 2 as our exponent. And there's 2 ways you could say this. You could say, oh, it's 4 to the 2nd power, or the most common way to say it is 4 squared. So anytime you have a little 2, it's whatever squared. This little 2 means squared. Now, what does a power actually mean? That means how many times you multiply that base by itself. So this is saying we're going to take 4 and multiply it by itself 2 times. So 4 times 4. So that would mean that the answer to 4 squared would be, okay, well 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, let's talk about another one that's really common. So our base for this one is 5 and our exponent is 3. You could say, okay, well this is 5 to the 3rd power, or most commonly used, 5 cubed. Anytime it's a 3, it's considered cubed. Now remember, x powers mean that you're going to take the base and multiply it by itself however many times the exponent is. So this is, we're going to take 5 and multiply it by itself 3 times. So we have 5 times 5 times 5. All right, so 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is, I do believe, 125. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, sometimes your base isn't always going to be a number. Sometimes it can be a variable, like x. So this is x as our base and 6 as our exponent. We would say x to the 6th power. There's not anything special for 6. The only special ones you need to know are 2, which is squared, and 3, which is cubed. All the rest of them are just whatever the number is. So if this was a 4, you'd say x to the 4th power. All right? And this just means x is being multiplied by itself 6 times. And if you're like, well, what would the answer to that one be? Well, it's just in simplest form, which is what we started with, x to the 6th. Okay? Now, let's keep going. Let's practice evaluating a simple one here. So they want us to evaluate x to the 4th when x equals 2. Now remember, we talked about evaluating last time, and evaluating means you just take whatever number they're giving you for that variable. For this one, they're giving us 2 to substitute in for x, and you plug it in to the expression. So we have x to the 4th. We're going to substitute 2 in. So now we have 2 to the 4th. So what does that mean? That means we're going to take 2 and multiply it by itself 4 times. So we're going to say 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, you can use the calculator if you want here. That is absolutely fine. But let's break it down. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And that would be your final answer. Now, if you have a calculator, you don't have to do all this. That's the joy of having a calculator. All right, now, sometimes you have to deal with things called grouping symbols. So these are parentheses, and these are brackets, and they're both considered grouping symbols. That means that they are taking things, and they're like, okay, handle this first before you do anything else. That's what these symbols mean. Anytime you see parentheses or brackets, it's like, all right, take care of this part first before you do anything else. So let's evaluate some addition expressions with different types of grouping symbols. So we're going to evaluate our variables of the expressions below when a equals 1 and b equals 2. All right, so we're going to substitute these in. So we have 1 squared plus 2 squared. Now, because those are in parentheses, we have to do them first. So 1 squared means 1 times 1, which is just 1. Once you do what's inside the parentheses, you can drop them. You don't have to write them anymore. Plus 2 squared, which is going to be 2 times 2, which is 4. Now just do whatever's left mathematically. So we have 1 plus 4, which is 5. And that would be your final answer. Let's do another one. We have, in our grouping symbols, a plus b all squared. So this one we're going to say 1 plus 2 squared. So remember, handle what's inside your parentheses first. So 1 plus 2 is 3 squared. Well, 3 squared, that would be 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, let's do one more example. We're going to do an example using grouping symbols when it comes to multiplication. Okay, so our first one here, we have to evaluate the expressions with the variables whenever x equals 4. All right, so we have 2x cubed. So we're going to substitute this in. And you're like, well, I don't see any grouping symbols. That means that cube is only working with x. Whatever it's next to is all it works with if it's not in grouping symbols. So we technically have 2 times 4 cubed. Now, handle your cube first, okay? They're together, so take care of them first. So this means we're going to have 4 times 4 times 4, which is, let's see, 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is going to be, oh my goodness, I'm brain dead. I'm going to use my calculator. It's 50 something, I think. 52, I might be wrong. It's 64. I'm way wrong. Woohoo! All right, so 64. So now we have 2 times 64, which is 128, but I'm going to check because apparently my brain's dead today. Oh, well, it is dead. It's 128. Sometimes you just have a good numbers day, and sometimes you just have a bad numbers day. It happens. All right. Now, because this cube, that's our 3, was not in a set of parentheses with the 2, like this over here, that means the cube only affected the x. Now, over here is different. Remember, you're always going to handle what's inside the parentheses first. So when I rewrite this one, it technically says 2 times 4 to the cube. Because remember in the last lesson we talked about whenever things are written next to each other like this, it means multiplication. So we're going to handle inside our parentheses first. So 2 times 4 is 8. So we have 8 cubed. I'm going to use my handy dandy calculator. So we have 8 times 8 times 8, which is 512. So yeah, use your calculator on these. It will make life a lot easier, okay? There's a lot more problems on the assessment than normal, that what you've been dealing with for these, but just, take them one problem at a time. It's not a big deal. If you have any questions, please feel free to text me, okay? Bye!